Welcome to episode 2 of Escape the Grind podcast. The Escape the Grind podcast? Gonna have to figure that out. Anyway, the topic of today's episode is who do you hire first? And I've mentioned it before and I will mention it again, but I bought a gym after being a CrossFit coach for 5 or 6 years. The fitness industry was that's really it as far as what I've done professionally for most of my life. I did that for 12, 13, 14, a long time. So, as a personal trainer, a CrossFit coach for a long time, I bought a gym, I got into it, and I loved that side of it, the technical side of it, just getting people better, the workouts. Like, I really nerded out on that stuff. And that was my passion for it. And then I bought a gym, and at some point, I realized that I wasn't just a CrossFit coach who paid rent at this facility. I was a business owner. And after reading the E-Myth by Michael Gerber, that's what really illuminated that for me, which was how wrong I was looking at my business. Like, the lens I was using to evaluate things was so wrong. I would basically look at all these really low value roles and just say, well, I have to do those things because I want to take pride in everything I do. I'm also saving money, et cetera, et cetera. But then that represents me working 50 to 60 hours a week, literally scrubbing toilets. And so what I figured out was this hierarchy of what jobs in my business paid me, an acceptable wage per hour. And I wanted to hire out all those other jobs. So it then becomes a question of, well, who do you hire, right? Because I think a lot of gym owners get stuck in this scarcity mindset of like, okay, well, I'll pay this person to do it, but where is that money going to come from? Well, you're buying back your time. And so you've then got to figure out, okay, what are my actual revenue generating activities that I do in the business? And they are lead, nurture, and sales, getting new members. I mean, there are other smaller things that you do in there, like you run, maybe you run a competition, but that's not a really reliable source of income. Maybe you do quarterly nutrition challenges, you do quarterly meetings with members, and you kind of upsell and resell them into certain things. But on the front end, lead, nurture, and sales, that's where those are your revenue generating activities. And those are things that most gym owners don't want to do and don't like to do. So really what I figured out was, cool, I'm going to get good at those because I don't like being bad at stuff. I hate having a low competency in things that are important to me. So I hired out those other roles. Like, I got a cleaner, and I hired out, a bunch of my coaching hours, eventually getting myself fully off the floor. And then I was able to focus more on sales and marketing. But really the question would be, who do you hire first? So I've got basically a short list of 2 hires that I would suggest that you make first. And so hire number 1 is, if you're still cleaning your gym, hire cleaners. It means you don't have to come in on the weekend. And it's not that you are better than people who are cleaners or better than cleaners, but you're buying back your time, because whether you know it or not, those 2 hours a week or 3 hours a week that you spend cleaning takes away from your energy, your attention, and your ability to do other things. Even though the tasks are different, it all drains the same battery. Right? You also want to get yourself in the mindset of the business owner. You don't want to clean toilets. You want to do those revenue generating activities in the business. So cleaning would be, I think that's a no-brainer. I'm not even going to count that, actually. I'm going to count that as like, that's hire 0. Just make that happen. I also don't recommend, for most people, having a member that cleans in exchange for membership, because they usually don't do a very good job. I would just hire a professional and call it a day, and move on. But the first hire I would make is either a coach to get yourself off the floor, or an admin. And I actually think hiring enough staff to get yourself off the floor is the move I'd want to make, because the admin work in a business, in a gym, it's not that hard. It's responding to a few different emails and, irregularly doing certain things, paying random invoices that come through, and, a little bit of stuff. It's not hard. It's not that time consuming. It's less than an hour a day. And while those little busy tasks can take up time and attention that you could use for other stuff, getting yourself off the floor, like coaching people, is a huge energy expenditure. And maybe you still want to keep personal training clients and that kind of stuff, because those are higher value. But getting off the floor and not coaching classes anymore frees you up and gives you this really big new lens to look through that says, hey, I'm now the business owner. I don't go and I don't make the sandwiches anymore. I have to figure out everything else. I have to figure out how much product to order and who to hire and how long stuff stays good for and what my profit margins are and this and that. Like, you essentially start playing the game of business for real instead of being a personal trainer who happens to also pay the rent. So I think getting off the floor should be your number one priority. At least it was for me. And then after that, you can hire an admin, and an admin is basically your personal assistant. So you can hire somebody for 10 to 20 hours a week to do all the little stuff. You can have them do the admin email. You can have them help you with whatever tasks you don't want to do. You could also do this through a VA. But I think having somebody that is in your community or physically in your location is just nice. Or yeah, you're going to pay more, but I think it's worth the money. Um, Bonus if that admin can also double as an appointment setter, because I do not enjoy appointment setting. Who does? Following up with leads is it's not. There is a very small amount of people I think that are just like, yeah, I would love to call random people and see if they want to book appointments to come down to a gym. I would love that. I don't think that there are that many people like that exist. I'm certainly not one of them. It's work I'm willing to do because it's what's required to be successful. And again, I want to get good at it because I don't like having low competency in things, but I certainly don't enjoy it. So if you can move that off your plate, for me, that was hugely freeing to have somebody else do my appointment setting. So that's what I would look at. If you don't end up finding them as a 2-in-1, that's okay. But that would be what I would look at. So enough staff first to where you can get off the floor, and then an admin who basically you're looking at as a personal assistant second. And if you don't have a cleaner, get one, right? Longer term, you can look at a GM and sales. And it's another topic for another day, but that's the first hire that I would make to get myself off the floor. Now, another quick book recommendation and another screen when it comes to hiring, because I interviewed a lot of gym owners over the past year. I would talk to on average 20 a week. And almost all of them had a coach or staff member that they weren't happy with, that they knew they needed to make a big change to, where they should just flat out fire, and they didn't. And they didn't have the guts to do it. And I truthfully, I understand, because it wasn't until late in owning my gym that I had the guts to be like, hey, this isn't working out. I need you to either do this, or I need you to go, or it's not a good fit anymore. Basically, firing people. So I was the biggest idiot because I would ask people to do things that they didn't want to do, and they would agree because they wanted to keep their jobs or keep their relationship with me, like cohesive, avoiding conflict, basically is what it was. So before you offer somebody a job or a role, especially if it's somebody, a pre-existing employee, you should run them through this screen called GWC. And this is from Gino Wickman's book, Traction. Traction is a good book. By far, this is the most valuable thing I've gotten out of it, is the GWC screen. So when you ask, like, hey, is somebody going to be a good fit for this? Do they get it? Do they do they want to do it? And C, do they have the capacity, or are they capable of doing it? And so, I would ask a coach to also do sales. Do they get it? Yeah, they know they need to sell. Do they want to do it? No, they do not. And do they have the capacity to do it? No, they don't. They're not the right fit for it. They're not the right personality. But they would agree to do it because they knew it was a need, and they didn't, I already went over that. But if you if you look at your org chart, and if you don't have an org chart of who does what role in your business, if you're the gym owner, it's probably you wearing the majority of hats, but you could drop the names of who's doing other things. And if you run people through those screens, do they get it? Do they want to do it? Do they have the capacity to do it? You'll find that there's some people in the wrong places. And the scale he uses in his book is from 1 to 5. So do they get it from 1 to 5? Do they want to do it from 1 to 5? Do they have the capacity to do it from 1 to 5? So you come up with that number. And basically, if it's less than a 3 on any of those, then that person's in the wrong position. Maybe they need a little bit of training. Maybe there's some wiggle room, but generally speaking, using that screen, you'll immediately see if somebody's in the wrong position, which I found was super useful. And again, took me a long time to realize, but being on the other side of it, it's obvious now. So anyway, hopefully you've gotten some value from the episode. You're thinking about your business through the lens of how can I build my machine, escape the day-to-day grind, especially these certain things that I find really draining. How can I get myself out of them and move myself into activities that are revenue generating activities, and start to build this profitable machine. So anyway, thank you for tuning into episode 2. Stay tuned for episode 3. If you found it valuable, please give it a share to another gym owner who could benefit from hearing these words. All right, cheers.